Again, good evening. Thanks everyone for joining. We're really grateful to be able to bring together such an awesome group of individuals this evening to have this conversation. I'm really excited to share some of their thoughts and their experiences with you. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping things. Please feel free to put questions in the chat or the Q&A at the bottom of your screen as you think of them. We will do our best to answer some questions as we go, if they kind of flow nicely into the way that the conversation's going, but we'll also definitely leave time at the end for some Q&A. So we'll do our best to answer any of those questions that we see come up. We'll also be sending a recording of this out to everybody who registered after the event. So if you do end up having to leave before we finish, or anybody that you know that wanted to join that wasn't able to today, don't worry, it'll be up on the YouTube channel probably tomorrow. So yeah, hopefully everybody, whether you get to watch the whole thing today or have to go back to it, I'm sure there'll be a ton of content and we want to make sure that you can go back and reference it if you need to. So let's get started with some introductions. Anybody who doesn't know me, my name's Siobhan. I'm the president of the Advertising Production Club of New York. We're an organization that seeks to support students who are looking to enter the world of media and advertising production, as well as the professionals who already exist in the industry. We do this by providing education, a very strong community, and we fundraise for a scholarship fund as well as an internship program. Our organization has always been really heavily involved with offline events, but like everybody in the last few months, we have started to move to a much more online model for providing the valuable content and the conversations that we believe our community want to hear. So whether we will be having these kind of webinars, fairly frequently. You may have already seen those. But on top of that, I wanted to mention that we have also got various monthly meetups happening. They're a great way to stay connected and meet others in the community, whether you're a student, a young professional, or somebody who's been in the industry a long time. It's a really great way. So please keep an eye out for those and come and join us in one of them. If you are registered for this, you'll be on our database now, so you'll start to see them come through. Obviously, it'd be great if you, if you're following us on social media and things as well, you'll see the stuff as we post it. So one of our goals as an organization is to make it as easy and accessible as possible for students to benefit from the expertise that exists within the industry that they're looking to go into. As industry experts, we want to make sure we offer our support as early in that student's journey as possible so they can benefit from the wisdom and the experience during their studies and then make that transition into the industry as enjoyable and positive as possible. So with all that in mind, we felt today's topic was a really essential one. We really believe that the earlier you can be preparing for that transition from a kind of structured curriculum-based environment to more of an unstructured professional world, the more prepared you will be to navigate your entry into your jobs and all the fun and the challenges that will come with. I know personally, as someone who had my finger in a lot of pies as a student with multiple jobs as well as studying, I actually then gained my first job out of one of those experiences. So I really believe in the importance of exploring this kind of stuff as early as you can in your student career, so that that kind of jump that we speak about into professional life might not feel like such a jump, but more of a kind of beautiful, smooth transition that flows and just becomes the next part of that journey for you, really. And with that, I couldn't think of a better group of people to have this conversation. These panelists today are absolutely the most wonderful demonstration of exactly that. So before we kind of delve into a little bit more of that conversation and look at some of the details around that, I'd really like to start by asking each of you guys to tell us a little bit about you. So where you are at the moment on your kind of professional journey and anything that's particularly relevant at the moment for you in terms of, the last few months and the COVID-19 situation. So Jacob, do you fancy starting?
Sure. How's it going, everybody? Thanks for joining. My name is Jacob Zaccone. I'm a recent graduate from Stony Brook University out in New York. I don't know where everybody is, East Coast, West Coast. We're on Long Island. So I just graduated with a BS in marketing and a specialization, or BS in business, specialization in marketing. And I've kind of got my foot, halfway into the industry already. I was interning with Henry Schein Dental in the product advertising team, also while working a part-time job. So, that firsthand experience as well. And I was the president of the Stony Brook chapter of the American Marketing Association. That's the way that I, was able to leverage the professional connections I made at Stony Brook that ended up translating into my internship that I'm still working at Henry Schein today. We're in the healthcare field, for those of you who don't know us. And, given the current climate, it's been crazy, to say the least.
Awesome. Thank you. Sophia, did you want to go next?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Sophia Stankina. I'm currently a rising senior at Elon University, a small school in North Carolina. So there I'm studying project management in business, and I'm also studying communications. I'm involved I'm the senior vice president of our business fraternity at Elon. So I've gotten to get like a good lot of experience with that and kind of see how I can do those leadership skills and kind of bring those into the workforce and kind of gain those good soft skills and everything like that. But yeah, thank you all for joining, and I'm excited to see where this conversation goes.
Thank you. And Elijah.
Great. Hey guys, my name's Elijah. I'm a production assistant at Showtime. I graduated in June of 2019. I've been working at Showtime since July of 2019, so coming in on a year now. Definitely a lot of experience in graphic design. Did a few internships. I was the vice president of the Art and Design Club at City Tech, or New York City College of Technology in Brooklyn, which is where I reside. And yeah, I'm happy to give you guys some gems today about professional development.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. Thank you, guys. So I wanted to start with some thoughts around internships, actually. I guess partly around, all of you guys have clearly got internships in your journey, whether that be something that's kind of new for you or something that you've done, throughout. And obviously, Elijah, it's amazing that, and Jacob, that your, internships have moved through pretty quickly to kind of, full-time style roles. So can we just, for a moment, can you just give me a little bit of your kind of thoughts on your experience within that internship? And perhaps a little bit around like what it was specifically for you that kind of like that you believe defines that internship. I'm quite conscious that with the current situation, internships, if you like, and anybody who logged onto our last webinar saw that, internships are very much still something that's accessible to students at the moment. They're a great entry into the job market, and they may look a little bit different than we expected them to. But I'd like to kind of bring us back to the core of what we believe an internship is, maybe just so that we can kind of talk a little bit around that. Sophia, did you want to start there?
Yeah. Well, for like the internships that I've had in the past, the kind of biggest thing that I kind of took away from it is just how to really strengthen your interpersonal skills and how to like use those soft skills that you just have and build up throughout your everyday lives, and just seeing how that works in a workplace, in a formal work setting. Because I mean, for me, starting out, I hadn't really been in the office in a very formal setting, and kind of using those interpersonal skills and kind of seeing how those fluctuate in a workplace setting is really important. And also just like at a basic level, kind of just seeing how you can take away just your daily tasks at that internship, or just your daily tasks that you're doing with that internship and everything that you do day to day, kind of see how that is structured and have like little tidbits that you can take away and just really learn a lot and as much as you can from the experience, and learn as much as you can either about that industry and see whether or not that's kind of a fit for you, or if it's something that you genuinely see yourself doing, and kind of just feel it out for how you are as a person, and kind of see where it goes.
Cool.
Try to take away as much as you can. That's what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. And how many internships have you had, Sophia?
formally, I guess one, and then with the APC, I worked with APC kind of as an intern in the fall and everything. So that would be a second. Yeah. So.
Great. Okay. Elijah, can we move on to you? And I think one thing I'd be really interested in as well is like, as you transitioned from your role as an intern to more of a, more of a kind of full-time, or, you know, it was a longer term intern, whatever you're calling it, or a real role. You know, just talk me through a little bit of that journey as well.
Sure. So I've actually had 4 internships throughout my college career, which they weren't exactly the same as Showtime, being that Showtime is not only full-time, but I've been working there for almost a year now.
Yeah.
Of course, the internships throughout my college career were part-time. And they did focus on different aspects because the title for those internships were either graphic design or something that had to do with branding, until I made the shift to production in Showtime, doing a lot of video editing and stuff. But I would say at Showtime, definitely more experience, more exposure. And one main thing that I would say these all jobs, or whether it was an internship or your career full-time, that really sticks out is relationship building. Aside from like networking and how you get the job and, you know, getting paid, it's like working at Showtime was something that I had no idea like what production was. So like shifting from advertising and graphic design, which is a lot of print, and it does include digital, to, you know, doing video editing, which I actually started doing late on in my college career, around my junior year. It was definitely surprising but exciting at the same time. So I'm definitely, you know, glad that my career path is headed in this direction, and entertainment has just been great so far. So
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, it certainly sounds like it's, you know, rather than being too focused on the concept of what internship means, you know, I think the idea of understanding that like all of that exposure is going to be useful, right? And like, how could you possibly know what's going to, you know, sometimes we don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone as we're finding right now.
yeah.
Like, so I think taking up as many of those opportunities as possible, and maybe not being so focused on like, is the name of the internship right? Is it, whether it's full-time or part-time? Like, even to an extent, is it paid or not? You know, like being very open to understanding that actually it's very difficult to really control outcomes. And that it's almost always that you're almost always going to find some element of benefit. So being open to those and maybe not being too worried about the definition of how they come through to you or the way they're being described, and actually realizing that the concept of interning really is just that continuation of that journey, right? And just finding as much experience as you can, being exposed to as many people as you can, as many networks, communities, all that stuff. Yeah, exactly. Like it's just part of the fun, right? It's the journey. Cool. Jacob, did you have any thoughts around that?
Sure, yeah, definitely. Similar to Sophia's situation, I had one, I guess you'd call internship, right? I'm seeing in the Q&A, right, asking about paid versus unpaid. This first one was unpaid. I was a student project manager with the student-run guerrilla marketing agency at Stony Brook. So we got to work with, you know, local small businesses. That's how I kind of got my start, you know, firsthand experience in the industry. It was great, you know, going to the board meetings, you know, sitting down with, you know, their marketing associates all the way even up to, you know, their CMO, and really putting a strategy behind, you know, what they wanted to get done. So I took that experience, and then that later transitioned into the opportunity I got at Henry Schein. And from there, I think the biggest thing when you walk into an internship is, you know, really try to hone in on, and if you can scope out in a strategic way, you know, look for that project that's being underutilized, right? Look for something with a lot of potential that no one in the company really has time for, right? Make that your project. It's great to touch as many things as possible, get the experience, but kind of seek out something that you can grow. So this way you can look back at your time there, whether it's, you know, the summer or you stick around for maybe a year, and you could say, okay, I took project X and grew it 20%, right? Not only to build that in your portfolio, but then also too, that leads to a better chance of you being asked back in the fall, or, you know, while you're still going to school, especially today with most things transitioning to digital, I see that being a lot more likely of, you know, externs sticking around as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And actually, Jacob, Deborah, who is a very, you know, committed member of our community, just said she's stealing that in the chat.
Hey, it's yours for the taking, right?
There we go. We're creating value already. But no, I completely, you know, I completely agree with you. I think, you know, it's great to have your finger in all those pies, but if you can, you know, see something through, and that, you know, essentially creates, like you say, some value that's associated with you and your involvement in that company over that period of time,
Exactly.
it's going to be a really good thing for you. You know, and I think, you know, we touched on this a little bit actually in the last webinar where we were talking to some of the kind of HR and internship leaders in the industry, and they were, you know, saying quite interesting that you've just touched on there as well, which is, you know, because of the situation we find ourselves in, there's actually a ton of opportunity that people wouldn't have even been looking for. Like, there was no job listings for it. There was no intern positions for it. And so that's a giant opportunity, you know. So everything that we face right now is, you know, isn't, you know, the challenge that, you know, maybe we, at the beginning of the spring, I feel like, where are we? We're in the summer, right? So the spring, we felt like these things were like real, like, oh my goodness, you know, these are real barriers. But actually, I think we're already seeing so many of those opportunities. I mean, I've seen so many cool jobs that have been created only because of where we are right now. And I think being in a place where there isn't like really, you know, at some point in your career, you're probably going to have slightly more strategic, slightly more directional KPI, you know, kind of goals and objectives and, I was going to say KPIs and, you know, just not to want to use acronyms, but key performance indicators that you guys really need to focus on. But at the moment, you've got this beautiful luxury of just being able to, like you say, like almost look at the environment and pick and choose a bit. And then you get to choose the success that you create and the way to show your value. So I think that that's, you know, that's a really good piece of advice. I love that. Okay, cool. One thing I did want to ask actually is, and actually I think I know this answer, Elijah, for you, but Jacob, when you came across your internship, was that what it was called? Was it actually called was it like published as an internship? Was there an official program, or were you the only person?
No, it definitely was. Henry Schein has a, you know, very vetted, very formalized internship process. I went in, trying to remember whether it was 5 or 6 interviews that first day, really did the rounds, and it was made pretty apparent that it was an internship.
Okay, and the same would be right for you, right, Elijah?
Yeah, I actually also interned for, not really an internship, but for TED. It was Ted CUNY, yeah, that was the volunteer internship, and I was doing that while working in an internship too. Right,
which I think we've now decided are all internships, volunteering or not. But I mean, Sophia, I think, how about for you?
So none of mine have really had a very formal process, which has kind of been really neat. But when it comes to interviewing, I get really nervous. But going into it, I would submit applications and everything, and I send in a resume and cover letter. And I just, because for me, my internship was when I was going to school in New York for just a semester. So I went up and I met with them, and I just had a kind of like a mix between an interview and kind of like an onboarding kind of conversation. It was really just kind of a casual conversation. And after that, it was more solidified and everything. And then it was less formal, but.
Yeah. But I think that comes on to a really good point, right? Which is that if you're only looking for the things for the internships that are already there, you're only going to find the ones that have already got a much more established program and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, just like the same for you with the APC, Sophia, you know, like those programs don't always have to be as formal, you know, like, so and I think this comes back to the point really of like, if the only way you think of internships is that formal process, then you might miss some opportunity. But if you actually think about it as just going, what I'm trying to do is give myself exposure to all these things, then you can probably begin those conversations, make those offers, et cetera, in places that maybe the companies or the organizations themselves hadn't outwardly been looking for. So just probably something to, just something to have a little think about, I think. Okay, cool. So I wanted to talk a little bit around mentors for a minute. So can you guys talk around mentors that you have had or still work with, and kind of where they identified themselves in your journey? And I guess I want this to be quite wide, so I'm not just necessarily thinking, you know, only career-based or at school or whatever, but like, you know, a little wider than that at the moment. Elijah, did you want to kick off?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, one of my former mentors, Bonnie Blake, is in the Q&A chat.
Oh, yay! Hi, Bonnie.
Yeah.
Bonnie definitely helped encourage me and break that barrier between me sort of feeling like I didn't need to network and grow in terms of keeping my options open and having opportunities. And I definitely feel like mentoring and mentorship helps those who are sort of new in the industry and just getting their feet wet. I was a sophomore, I believe, at the time when I was first introduced to Bonnie, and she became my mentor. And throughout my sophomore year, she definitely helped me a lot feel more confident going to networking events. That was actually around the time I became the vice president of the Art and Design Club. And yeah, I just definitely felt more confident in terms of like giving myself that leader role and like I said before, keeping my options open and sort of letting opportunity present itself as well as knocking on the door of opportunity. And
yeah, awesome, cool. Jacob, anyone that kind of comes to mind for you? Like, you know, it doesn't even have to be someone that's, you know, that's still around in your journey.
Of course. I mean, if we're giving shout outs, we're shout outs to do. Jimmy Levin, I saw him. He was writing, same thing in the QA.
Okay, that wasn't the intention of this question, just to like.
I know, but hey, right? I got to give a shout out to Jimmy. He was my go-to at Stony Brook. He helped us so much out. He works with the Career Center with planning events and getting all that stuff done. But I mean, really back to, I guess like my first mentor was probably the former president of the AMA at Stony Brook. He was just a great leader. He was heading, you know, the double-headed monster of the AMA, the American Marketing Association, and the student-run agency at the same time. So really, you know, on one hand, he's meeting with clients daily, weekly, going to those meetings, handling all that stuff, getting new clients acquired, and then at the same time, you know, running the show that is the AMA and, you know, really bringing professionals into Stony Brook to allow us to network and meet with them. And, you know, seeing a lot, I learned firsthand from his leadership, just the way that he, you know, managed his time, the way that he spoke, I think is something very important. The way that he conducted himself in a business environment is something that I've you know, tried to emulate in the years to follow, for sure.
Okay. Sophia?
Yeah. I would say, honestly, Siobhan, you would probably be a huge mentor.
Really, like, it's getting ridiculous now.
there's your shout out. Yeah, so you definitely, because that has been kind of the real step that I've had from off-campus advising and everything with our professional development center at my school, and having that step from like kind of on campus and everything to like the real world and seeing how things are really done and outside of a campus organization and stuff like that. Just getting that experience and seeing how people communicate and everything like that. And I like for me, probably the biggest takeaway, or many big takeaways, but one big thing is kind of just like letting myself de-stress and realizing I like have all these tasks and then I think, oh, Siobhan probably has 10 more, so I don't need to be stressed about it. But like I'll probably like kind of just relax and stuff like that, and having you to guide me and kind of show me the ropes of what things are actually done and like production or print production and everything, and how like the real world operates is a completely different experience that I'm very grateful for, that I haven't really gotten the chance to get on campus. But yeah.
Thank you. That's lovely. I mean, actually, that's a really good point, which was something else I wanted to kind of think about. And I know that all four of us in our planning session, we talked a lot around this idea of like maybe beginning to move away from this idea of like this this curriculum journey and then this big jump to a professional journey, and that actually if it was a little more integrated along the way, and I think like that's kind of why, both in terms of the internships, my thought process is always like, don't necessarily only look for the formal stuff. I guess it's a little bit like the mentors, right? Like, if you are only looking for mentors in the things that are right in front of you, then as fabulous as they are, that is only one part of the puzzle. And I think that that also comes with needing to ask for mentorship, not just wait for it to be offered. You know, it's great when industry, you know, people in the industry are passionate about helping others come into the industry and want to give their time and all those things, and love that. But there's actually a lot of people who aren't necessarily going to offer that, but A, would love to be asked, and B, you can really, you know, you can gain a ton from. And I think the other thing is being open to the mentorship looks a bit different if that's the case, right? Like sometimes it is almost more, it's like a friendship, right? It's staying connected. It's not formal. It doesn't have meetings necessarily, you know, but again, in the same way as we want to think about internships as like, doesn't matter if they're not called internships, you're still learning what those key tools are. Mentors are the same, right? Yeah. And you know, again, I think personally for me, like often a lot of my mentors are people that haven't even come anywhere in my professional journey, you know, like they are people that I've just had beside me as that support and in that encouragement, and for me to, and actually some of those lessons have been seen in places that weren't directly attributing to professional, and maybe that's why I saw them, you know. So I think, you know, not being afraid to even ask somebody like, I'd love you to be my mentor. Like you'd be astounded how many people would like be absolutely touched by that kind of idea. So something to think about, I think.
Yeah.
So actually, Sophia, that does bring me on to quite something I was kind of going to cover a little bit later, actually, but I think that this is nice, and it starts to kind of move us into more around some of the kind of tools and things that I think we wanted to talk about here. So I think time management, structure, decision making, you know, all really important skills for kind of being able to manage, you know, a really busy life, professional life, career, student life, whatever it may be, and ensuring that you are still going to kind of achieve some outcomes. And like you say, they can be really overwhelming, right? Like you can have so much on. What are kind of some of the techniques that you guys use to ensure that you can keep moving with all that stuff that you're involved in? Because you all have a lot of things, you know, you're all studying, you're all doing some form of internship, you've all got other bodies that you're involved in. What techniques do you use to make sure you don't become overwhelmed? And this is very wide, right? This doesn't have to be, again, like, you know, this doesn't have to be super professional techniques, you know, like what do you do to practice not becoming overwhelmed? Jacob?
Sure. So I look at time management in kind of two different ways, right? So time management in the office, I think, is a really huge thing, right? If we're talking professional, right? I'm big on lists. I'm big on, you know, setting priorities and really being able to assign precedence to projects, right? You could have a million things to do, but, you know, it's often like the case, oh, I have so many things to do, I don't know which one to do first. Yeah, really seeing what the importance lies and then going at that first. Letting the other things trickle down from there in the background. But for me personally, as weird as it sounds, I'm big on Post-its. If you'd ever seen my Stony Brook dorm, you know, in the middle of the semester, doing the AMA, doing life, and there's just Post-its all over my desk. It's weird, similar to the list at work. There's something to taking it off the desk, crumbling it up and saying, we're done. We got that over with. And now there's more space on the desk, right? It kind of helps my peace of mind. And also too, it helps me compartmentalize, right? Being able to see like, okay, I have this many things done. I have this many things to do. And being able to attack it from there. I also, for some weird reason, have to have things in front of me. I've tried the planners. I've tried, you know, I use Google Calendar to a certain extent, but something physical, something tangible in front of me, that reminder, I think is huge. It keeps it top of mind for me.
Who doesn't love stationery?
Right?
I mean, stationery shops are still my favorite shops, even though I don't need any stationery.
Exactly.
And actually,
totally.
That's kind of quite interesting too, that I think, again, like if that's something that works for you, if you go into an environment where that isn't a technique they use, and I think actually I was going to talk a little bit in a minute around like you guys being from a world where technology is maybe not as much of a taboo or as difficult as, you know, maybe somebody who was starting their career 10 years ago or whatever. And therefore there's like probably a little bit of an expectation that you guys are gonna just, you know, the whole digital kind of native thing that you guys just, you know, can use project management tools and can use digital calendars and know how to do all of that. Like, but I think using them in a professional world is actually quite different. And so I think I would, you know, as some advice from my side would be to, like, if that's a way you know you work, when you walk into an environment, don't be afraid to stick within that, because if that's how you believe things work, like in your brain, you know how you process, you know how you achieve things, do it. Don't be afraid to kind of express that as well, not just actually keep doing it, but say, you know, like, but I think you can do it with an openness of being like, I understand that I need to, you know, be using these tools as well, but, you know, and really, rather than just throwing out all the things that you know work for you and just moving to something that you've been told to do, right? And that lesson is going to come back over and over again, of like, just because somebody's telling you that's how they do it, or that's how they'd like it to be done, your voice matters here, and it will make a difference to your outcome. And so really, like, being able to listen to that inside and know that's how I think will help you then have that conversation with somebody. And I kind of comes on to, you know, that kind of inner voice conversation that we were having before around like being an inner coach for yourself, and knowing that kind of stuff. Elijah, I think, you know, you and I have talked a little bit in the past around that kind of stuff. Like, what are your thoughts there?
I would say in regards to what you were saying, definitely like make sure you're within your comfort zone, even if you have to step outside of your comfort zone a little bit. And to what Jacob had mentioned, I definitely do a lot of sticky note taking. And other than that, it's notes on my phone and reminders. Those are like the two main things that I use to prioritize my time and my work as well.
Sophia, is there anything that you got as kind of tactics?
Yeah, I do like writing things down and just throwing everything on paper before I forget about it. And that's like my biggest thing, is note taking either during a meeting or during whatever I'm doing, just so like it doesn't slip my mind, or it's just so it's all on like one sheet of paper. I also really like using my calendar on my phone, trying to add those in, so I have kind of everything in, like within the calendar I have note sections, so just kind of throwing everything in there, so it's kind of one place on my phone, and so it pops up on my phone and my computer and stuff like that. But really the biggest thing is just writing everything down, and like when a thought comes to my head, just throwing it down on paper and kind of tying it in all together, and kind of really just note taking.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Staples is definitely not going out of business with you guys around, is it?
Definitely not.
No way.
Okay. Awesome. I mean, I'm a bit more of a paper source girl, if I'm honest. Okay, so let's move on a little bit and talk a little bit around kind of building that kind of digital presence, you know, portfolio, developing a brand, you know, resume writing, all that kind of stuff. And I think, you know, again, when we chatted, us guys, previous to this, and, you know, we did talk a little bit around that, but, you know, what have you guys done in terms of, you know, going that step a little bit further than just having a resume? You know, whether that be building a LinkedIn profile, any good techniques around that, creating any specific content to yourselves, whether that be portfolios, whether it be, you know, whatever, any other kind of creative ideas you've come across. Like, what do you guys do to begin to create that kind of Jacob the brand, Elijah the brand, Sophia the brand, rather than, you know, just a piece of paper, another person on a resume?
I can start if nobody else wants to. So actually, funny story, a professor of mine when I was, I think I was a sophomore, he had challenged us to get 500 connections on LinkedIn. He said that him and his wife had done that, and his wife had beat him to it. And yeah, I ended up by my senior year, I think, by the end of my senior year, I had 500 connections on LinkedIn. And these were, of course, a lot of people that I met in networking events and stuff like that. But other than that, I would say in terms of your personal brand, that's the best way to the best way is to utilize your resources. And it's important to establish who you are early on, so this way you can showcase that whenever you're applying to jobs or throughout your college career.
How did you actually find those 500 people though, Elijah? What did you actually do on LinkedIn?
Well, so LinkedIn sort of breaks it down like first, second, third connections. So
Yeah.
a lot of them were first, and I would meet people through those, and I would share posts. I would just be very active. I treated it the same as my other social media apps, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is. I would just be very involved. I watched a lot of Gary V videos, a lot of graphic design stuff.
Yeah.
We had some class sessions where we would literally just like, each student would connect with each other on LinkedIn. And this happened especially late on in my college career, before we graduated. Because as they always say, your network is your net worth.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think I'd agree. And I know, again, there's some really great masterclasses on LinkedIn that you got, to check out, and maybe we can add some into the notes afterwards. But, you're right. Like, and it is more than just connections, right? Because connections you speak to anybody that has mastered the LinkedIn thing, and it isn't even about those first connections, and I think unlike Facebook or any other social media, like your friends are your friends, but that's not what these are. Connections, they are not friends, and so it can be wider, and it can be, maybe you can accept connections of people that you maybe don't know today why you're accepting them, but it will make sense, longer term. I think the other thing to note there as well is, again, like, while it's great to like stuff and things, if you can be commenting, because again, Fred, I'm sure you guys, but like that's essentially how your activity feed is being filled, is more than just what you're posting and what you're liking, but it's actually who you're commenting on. And then, that's how you get that, that very active feel, I think, on LinkedIn. Sphere, did you have anything specific on that?
Yeah, just really one thing that I've kind of tried to do a little bit of is, like Elijah said, is kind of building that LinkedIn profile and everything like that, and kind of building your connections and everything. And I think another thing to be mindful of is LinkedIn is kind of like all other social media sources, and you want to kind of add people who you think will be really either, or like you think will be beneficial in some sort of way, either with like the information that they're going to be putting out, that kind of information will be relevant to you, either you personally or like you professionally, and kind of where you want to go. But another thing that I've tried to utilize is linking, which you can do on your LinkedIn, is just linking either articles that are written with you in them or something like that, or just linking other work that you've done, and that will pop up at the kind of right below your bio and your LinkedIn profile. So kind of getting people that view your profile, that external kind of source other than just your LinkedIn, because you can write whatever about yourself on your LinkedIn, but if there is anything external that's on the internet that's about you that you want to be portrayed, putting that and linking that on there, whether that be work you've done or work that other people have said about you and stuff like that. That's another thing that I've tried using, so people kind of have that second source.
Yeah, no, it's great. Jacob, anything to add?
Nice. Yeah, I mean, you guys definitely knocked it out of the park. I had two big, LinkedIn tips in terms of strategy, right? I actually had someone come up to me at a networking event this past year, and he said, "Hey, thanks so much for inviting me to the event. It was great. I saw that you added me on LinkedIn, and I declined it." And I was like, "Okay, you seem like a nice guy. It's kind of weird." And he said, "You didn't personalize the message. You didn't add any value for me to that connection. Sure, you invited me to the event. I know who you are. It looks like you are who you are over email, but that personal touch, I feel like, is huge." And he was like, "To be honest," and again, this is kind of, someone's perspective, but it's almost a lazy ad at that point. If you met someone, you had a great conversation, you guys really hit it off, and then you just hit them with the ad. Why not follow up and say, "Hey, met you at X, Y, and Z event. We had a conversation about A and B, and I'd really like to connect and continue this relationship moving forward." I think personalizing is huge. It's just a really good way to keep that connection rolling instead of, okay, well, now we're connected and that's kind of the end of the relationship. We'll like each other's posts, but it ends there. Number two for me, I think is, the endorsements. Endorsements, huge. If you have people within, your community, if you're involved in a student group, I think it's really big. to reach out, and honestly, you can just ask for them. If someone knows you and they know, what you work on, and those top 3 skills are, relevant to the projects that you deal with on a daily basis, why not ask? So Elijah was saying that in his class, they were all, connecting with everybody. So what we did at the AMA this year was our first icebreaker in the fall was, hey, everybody in the room, let's all just connect on LinkedIn. Whatever, there's 30 to 40 people, let's all just add each other. And then the follow-up for that in the spring was, okay, now let's all go endorse each other's skills. Now that we're connected, we know each other, the relationship is established, let's go boost our own SEO within the LinkedIn search platform and endorse each other for skills. It's also a huge thing. I mean, when you go to someone's profile and you see that they've got 45 endorsements for, fintech, it seems pretty legit.
Yeah. I mean, we're certainly hearing that LinkedIn's powerful, aren't we? Didn't intend that to be a fully LinkedIn conversation, but no, I mean, I agree. And I think, Jacob, they're really good points as well around making it personalized. It takes 2 seconds, right? To just say, like you say, hi, we met here, or hi, I've seen. But again, I would urge, another kind of little thing I would say around that is if you haven't met them and you want it to be personalized, then all you need to do is follow something that they've done and make that your comment, so hi,
Exactly.
I saw that you were on a panel last week, I really like this, or hey, I was doing this too. You don't actually have to have met them. The personalization thing is genius, I agree, but don't let it worry you whether you've actually met them or not. It's the value thing, like you say, Jacob. And I think the other thing that's kind of cute, and I've seen being used tons more at the moment in LinkedIn, is the video messages. People love them. They're really cute. They're a really good way of making, of just standing out a little bit. Doesn't have to be even a minute, but I love it. It's super personalized, it's raw and vulnerable, and who's not going to answer that, and just so everybody knows, Deborah says everybody can connect with her. So there you go. Whatever happens today, everybody has another connection. So yeah. Cool. So actually that also kind of leads me on to, I guess, that kind of takes us on to networking, but other kind of skills, I guess, around, building community, and, what have you guys or other ways other than just LinkedIn, to actually be building that kind of, that knowledge base, and that kind of community element outside of just the school's environment that you're in. So, and you're all at different stages within that. Obviously, it's, it's kind of why it was so interesting to have this, this group of people together. But what do you do outside of anything that the school tells you to do, or you're advised to do? What else have you done that's nothing to do with that, that's really helped you build community and learn how to network? Anybody can start, anybody who would like.
Sure, I could take it on this one. I think, this is something that we touched upon when we all met prior to the webinar, is that there's not as much of a difference between, your personal journey and your professional journey as we think, right? Oftentimes we think that, okay, I'm going to interact with people at work this way, I'm going to conduct myself this way, and then when the weekend comes around, I'm going to be a completely different person, and I'm just going to go off the rails. It's more of that the people you interact with every day on a daily basis, see the value there that you may not even know exists, right? Treat everyone as if they're, that next connection. Elijah was saying before, your network is your net worth. Treat every person you meet, obviously genuinely, but understand that the way you conduct yourself in real life translates very well to, your network, and then the way that you're then perceived in the professional world. I think that's huge.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah, and sorry, to add to that, I would say definitely network is your net worth, of course, and building relationships is important, because the more people you know, the higher chance you have of an opportunity for yourself or for others that you know. So it's just a great way all around.
Cool. Sophia?
Yeah, kind of building off of what they were saying, and being able to connect people with another opportunity, or kind of either connect people with either an internship or somebody who could be of a mentor to them, is really fulfilling at any party, and being able to kind of broaden your network and encourage people to introduce you to other people and everything like that. But I think another huge thing is doing a lot of research and kind of seeing where your values align and what your interests align with a career or something like that. And also seeing either whether it be an internet personality or somebody who's big on the internet kind of having a huge established career, or whether it be a small person who has really established something that either you're interested in, and kind of seeing the path that they took and either trying to mock that path or make a path of your own, and kind of seeing how other people's experience can really teach you a lot about what you can do and kind of the path that you can take to achieving what you want and everything like that. So kind of just doing a lot of research and seeing where your interests and your career interests can take you.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that kind of comes down really to what we're saying all through this, right? Like, it's like, if you're following your passions and you're doing what feels so authentic and real to you, it isn't about a jump from, you know, being a student to being a young professional. It's just continuing to develop you, right? And, you know, all the things you guys are talking about are stuff that you would just do now. We all would, you know, we would all introduce our friend to somebody if we heard them talking about something that we could help them with. We would all brainstorm with them, not necessarily worrying about what the outcomes were or if we knew the answer. And none of that changes in a professional sense. You know, you can walk into, whether it's a room in a physical world, when we all get back to the world of being allowed to do that, or whether it's, you know, a virtual event. Like, adding value to a conversation in a mutual fashion is the same. It doesn't matter. And the more you follow your passion and the things that are important to you in that conversation, the more natural that will come. And that comes across, you know. I feel like, you know, I always think about it as a little bit of a treasure hunt. You know, I'm kind of like, oh, this is just, you know, it's so fun. Like, I have no idea why I'm meeting this person, but I'll just keep talking to them. Worst case, I'll talk to them about me. And then they'll tell me something about them, and then I'll respond to that. And then, you know, we'll grow as friends and it will become a relationship. And maybe it will one day have a professional element to it. Maybe it won't. Maybe they'll become a mentor. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll introduce me to someone. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll do a ton of stuff that I actually don't agree with, and it's going to teach me a load of stuff around that I don't want to do. Who knows, right? But there really is value in like every single one of those conversations. And I think not getting too worried about like, why am I here? What am I going to say to this person? You know, have I got something that's of interest to them? Like, you absolutely have. And the way to feel that, and the way to feel the most natural with that, is to talk about and feel into the things that you already love. And don't try and be obsessed with the outcome of what's going to come out of that, or whether or not that relates to something professional or with money associated to it, or any of those things. So I love the fact that like all you guys, and I know, you know, I've had conversations with all of you and know you all fairly well, and I love that this is something you all do all the time. So, you know, it must correlate somewhere very successfully, because, you know, you guys are, you know, you're all doing, you know, doing really great at navigating this journey, I think. I think what I wanted to talk about a little bit is, I'm just trying to make sure that we've covered. Sorry, I'm just having a very quick look at the questions as well. I think we're gonna come on to some of those in a second. Okay. So one thing before we go on to kind of some audience question is, when we were all talking, you know, and we have talked about this before, we talked about this idea of manifesting. In fact, we even debated using it as a title for the webinar. I think we decided that it would maybe be better to be talked about rather than, you know, to go in as the actual title. But what does manifesting mean to you? And how do you kind of bring it into your life daily? How do you practice it? This, again, can be in a kind of professional sense, or, you know, in any other of your kind of passions or ways you spend your time. Elijah, did you want to kick off?
Yes, definitely. I would say manifesting to me means setting a goal in your life and sticking to it. I would also say that ambition plays a major role in like sticking to that goal. It becomes more than just passion, and speaking things into existence. It's just manifesting sort of a journey and a path that you sort of agree upon yourself to stick to. because of the level of ambition you have towards that, and how bad it just comes down to how determined you are and how bad you want it, and what you're willing to do to get there. And yeah.
And would you, before one of you guys take it, would you say that that goal, if you like, is the most important part of that? I mean, the word ambition is that a practice that you're doing throughout that process, or is that the goal?
I would say the ambition is the drive. So it's what gets you up whenever you feel like you fall and you can't make it. And definitely the goal is not the ultimate goal, if that makes sense. I feel like the journey getting there is how you grow. And that leads you to like just maybe what you didn't expect the end goal to be in a positive light. And yeah, like definitely that.
No, I love that. It's kind of like, actually the goal is just to keep moving, put one step forward. Like, there is no end.
The goal is just the end title, but like the path is what's defining you and helping you grow along the way.
And every single day you see awesome stuff, if that's the case, cool. Sophia?
I don't really have a probably specific definition of manifesting. I guess really just like Elijah said, just knowing what you kind of want, and also that might change, obviously, like that you might figure out what you thought you want isn't actually what you wanted and you were completely wrong, but like kind of knowing who you are and really sticking true to your values and knowing your values. And I think that will ultimately kind of manifest itself, and like kind of your path will manifest itself and it'll really lead you down where you want to go. And yeah, just knowing what you kind of want in a broad sense, and whether that be like the workplace that you're wanting to be in, like the work setting that you would want to be in, or kind of in a broader sense, just what you would ultimately be wanting to do either 5 or 10 years down the line, but kind of just keeping that in mind and keeping that in your radar, just carrying out your day-to-day activities, kind of having that in the back of your mind, knowing that this is a goal that I really want, and there will be many goals. And I think either prioritizing them will be really helpful, because you might get stressed out if you try to achieve all of them at once, but really kind of keeping mind of who you are and knowing your goals can kind of manifest into what you want.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think, I guess really like that's the point, right? It's like, it's just the concept really, I guess, of, putting yourself in a place that you want to be and not worrying too much about the way you get there. Being very, very open to adapting and flowing along the way, not being so fixed on something that you otherwise won't be able, you might miss it. I think, I totally agree. Jacob, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, definitely. So what you guys are alluding to, right, is that the goals aren't necessarily a finite end, right? It's something that, is a work in progress. I think it's all encompassing. I think, it takes every bit of who you are, right, to manifest, whether it's your career path or whether it's, your personal growth. And for me, I think the biggest thing is really taking pride in everything you do, right? If you're going to put your name to a piece of paper on something, you're going to, you're going to write an email, double check it, right? If you're going to, send out a file, you just got your first internship and you're just doing data transfer, and the most boring thing you could ever imagine, right? Put some pride into it. Get something out of it, right? We're talking so much about how the journey is really where that value is derived from. If you're going to sit there all day and transfer data over, put in some good music, put some pride into it, and be able to say when you deliver it, all right, yeah, I'm putting my name on this, and this is something that, I'm proud to have done. And I think if you can apply that to, every aspect of your life if possible, that's really when you'll start to see, kind of as we're seeing in the comments here, right? Success will come to those who are just being themselves. You'll start to see as, you manifest your own career path and your own, destiny, right? Good things will come your way in almost an exponential form once you start to get on that path.
Yeah. No, I agree. Sorry, go on, babe. Go on.
But I was just going to say that really giving yourself credit and patting yourself on the back for small things or even big things is huge, I think, because for me personally, that's just something that I just don't do and I don't recognize. And I think, for example, like, this is amazing that we're all young people and we're doing this and that all these people would care to listen to us speak. But just taking every small victory that you have and really kind of taking a step back and seeing that and seeing the value and seeing what you did for that, kind of just encouraging yourself to keep going and stuff like that. Just, that would be good.
Love that. I love that. Yeah, you know,
Definitely.
like,
Sophia, to that point, I think a big part of it is you have to be honest enough with who you are and yourself. Don't judge yourself, right? You're saying so much about how, like, de-stressing and, you know, make sure you don't get too worked up. You know, take that day to just do nothing, right? If you need it, don't judge yourself. Take that day to really just, you know, kind of relax and decompress, or whether it's like, oh, I had to do a million things today, I only got 5 done. You still got 5 done. We're saying, like, celebrate every victory. I think that's, you know, really the same thing. It's huge.
and guys, you know, it's so funny. I feel like I've spent the last 3 months or however long we've been in this, whatever we're calling it now, just listening to people pretty much say everything you guys have just said. And so every webinar and every conversation right now is filled with exactly this, right? So somewhere along the lines, everybody has forgotten about all the things you're talking about, and now in the middle of a pandemic have decided to all remember it. So it would be really lovely if whatever the next generation that's coming through into the workforce right now didn't forget it to need to learn it again. So I remember, Elijah, one of the first times that you and I spoke, and I was just like, whoa, like, oh my goodness, I wish, like, I had not had to forget all those things to learn them again. So then I was like, how do you know this? Like, how is this so what? I'm sure I didn't think like this at 21, you know? So I mean, I love it. And I hope you guys, you know, continue to kind of keep talking in this type of tone of voice, because I think that there's a big tone of voice change right now, right? Around, and you'll find it as you move into these industries too, like, you know, people, everybody wants to talk about people right now. It's all about looking after teams and people and, you know, how people feel and cultures. And the more that we move into the, you know, remote working being more normal, you know, being very empathetic to that and knowing how to deal with that, you know, like, and this is stuff that you guys already have, like, it's intrinsically in you. You do not need to learn this. You know, right now it would appear that people that have been in industry for 10 or 15 years are having to relearn to remember to ask how their colleagues are, or, you know, check in with each other. But that's there, so just take it. Like, it's like a superpower you already have, so use it right now. And you know what, talk about it, because I promise you, and I sit on hundreds of webinars and hundreds of panels, it is being talked about everywhere. So if you believe in this right now and you truly feel like this is something that you can talk about and that you are passionate about, this is a very interesting subject that you will, you know, you'll create a flag, a very positive flag, you know, around it. And, you know, I think, and I still do this all the time around, you know, if my kind of idea of manifesting is like, I almost just pretend I'm already living the thing I want to do, right? Like, not lying, not like whatever, like a little mini role playing, you know, like, if you want to make a career change, like, do, you know, I don't know, like, ring some people up in your network, talk to them about the change that you've made, talk to them about the life that you know, where you want to be in 6 months' time, pretend you're there now, like, ring them and talk like you are. Like, the irony is, if that flows, if that comes out, if that language is just what, you know, is so natural to you, it's because, you know, that is manifesting. That is what you're living, and that will come across in that messaging too. And they're not going to question you. They're not going to be like, oh, I want to check up on that. And no resume is going to show that. You know, that's going to come across from you, which I think is another reason why actually things like video things, messages and stuff like that, where you can pull the energy. You've got so much more than just a piece of paper right now. And that, I would say, is an opportunity that we didn't have when we weren't all as open to remote working. You know, and so, you know, that's a really cool thing. Like, get comfortable with that, you know, really, you know, realize that that's something that's, you know, that really is powerful for you guys. Cool. Okay. So let's have a little look at a couple of questions. Actually, Jimmy had left a question in here. So it says, please ask the panel about how the extracurricular activities, so I know, Jacob, you mentioned like the AMA, and I know you got other, Sphere and Elijah, you have others as well, played a role in your development, and how it's kind of impacted, or how you feel like those organizations specifically are going to help on your career path. And I guess I was actually going to say this is a good thread around this is a good opportunity as well if you guys are involved in organizations that you want to plug them, right? Like, and because if they're organizations that you guys feel passionate about, they're probably organizations that others can help with. So, let's just take a minute to kind of to do that. So, I mean, Elijah, did you want to start there? So let's move away from like I say, the kind of career side and the jobs that you're in right now, and let's talk about some of those other organizations that you guys are really active in.
Yes, definitely. As I mentioned before, I interned, or I participated. I was a volunteer, I should say, for CUNY, Ted CUNY.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember first, I did an interview and I thought it was a paid position. So I was sort of iffy when I found out it was unpaid, but it lasted about a year. So it was my senior year of college, and it was actually one of the best experiences I've ever had, being a part of a team. We were all students at the time. And it was just so much teamwork, and I was so involved, and literally like the first project that they assigned me to, I like completely forgot that I wasn't getting paid, and it just became a part of the journey. And it was really great. And at the end, we held an actual TED conference, which I've never been to. And it was great to be a part of, the production, the design, and just to see, how like our team made it happen, for a good cause. And yeah.
I love the like forgetting to be paid. I feel like I have the superpower of getting myself involved in things that I don't get paid for. It's amazing. And I always feel like as soon as I'm there, I know I'm in exactly the right place.
Yeah.
Jacob.
Sure. So I think, really one thing that's universal across, it doesn't really matter. Yep, I'm not on mute, sorry. It doesn't really matter what the organization is. I just think that there's so much value in being able to take on a leadership position, right? Being able to head a team of people, right? Being able to understand, as Sophia was alluding to, those soft skills, right? The dynamics that, contribute to a team environment, and being able to control that, and being able to, in some sense, manipulate that towards a goal, I think is huge. It's something that only really comes with firsthand experience, that you're only going to be able to learn by doing it, whether it's at an organization at school, whether it's, something outside of academics, even separate from your college, being able to, whatever capacity it is, lead a team of people, I think is probably the biggest experience, the most valuable experience that you can really have on your resume. And it's something you can speak to later. And we often find that employers, for emerging college graduates and even those looking for internships, the questions are often, what leadership roles have you held? We often see that even in applying to colleges, right? That's a really big thing. So I think if you can, find a way to get yourself, whether it's a small club, something, maybe just a couple people, to be able to assert yourself as a leader, I mean, it's probably one of the smartest and strongest things you could do to bolster your resume and your professional profile.
Yeah, no, I think, and my guess would be this is where Jimmy was going with this question, really, is like back to that idea of like, those things that are important, they're not always going to come in the form you thought they are. And sometimes you forget you've got them. And like leadership's a great one, right? Like you show it, you can show it in many ways. I mean, goodness, you can watch, sometimes you watch the playground, right? And you see a 6-year-old and she's the one that's like, everyone's going, so what are we playing next? Or what are we doing this? Those things are knowing that you've got those things to call on can really make you feel a lot more equipped when you're having those conversations, that you don't have to have like 10 professional environments where that's happened. You know what, I think I would call on that all the way through, like not just in terms of job entries, when I'm interviewing people or talking to people. I love hearing about stuff like that, like in fact, if anything, I would almost much rather talk to somebody around the things. I hate to use the extracurriculum because, I do believe it's very integrated, but the things that in theory aren't the things that are going to qualify them for my job description. Like what are those things that they've been practicing for longer than, they can even imagine, you know, and I think we've touched on a lot of those, you know, resilience and motivation and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. But everybody's got it. And, you know, yeah, you can probably dig 10 examples of every single one of those. Sophia, did you want to add anything in there around kind of any of the extracurriculum stuff that you do?
Yeah. Like Jacob said, and everything, just taking away those soft skills is really huge. For me personally, I guess this would be extracurricular in like my business fraternity and everything, but also just working service jobs in the past. A huge skill is conflict resolution. And because not some people just really are uncomfortable in conflict and everything like that, but that goes kind of intertwined with the interpersonal skills and everything, just being able to handle conflict and being able to mitigate a problem, and kind of whether it be between two people or two parties, or it just being something that's wrong in a project or something like that, being able to mitigate a problem is huge, and I think is a huge asset that will become like important in any job or just day-to-day life. Being able to kind of take away those skills that you've gotten and kind of see how they can work with conflict resolution and being able to mitigate things.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think that the more you can kind of keep that, you know, keep in mind all that type of integration going forward, you know, the better. I personally took a bit of a career shift a couple of years ago and wanted to have the opportunity to really just follow a lot of the things that were in my passion. And in order to do that, I needed to be, you know, joking aside around the idea of like not being paid, I needed to make sure that I could just follow whatever I wanted to do, whatever felt good, whatever felt my passion. And so in order to do that and to make sure that I could, you know, grow that network and be involved however many hours that was going to take and still be able to look after myself, I actually kind of went back and did almost maybe something that was the one way around and I went back and I got a bar job. And I was like, you know what? If working in a bar 10 hours a day, 10 hours a week, because that was all it was, you know, 2 evenings on a weekend, means that the rest of my time I can do everything that allows me to keep growing and do the things that are passionate to me, whatever. Like I'll do that. And I never realized how strong and empowering that would actually be, even though I had all these incredible, like, you know, years in an agency and digital marketing skills and commercial skills and client servicing skills and operational skills. I was like, wow, isn't it crazy how you can do something that actually no matter what happens, you'll always have a skill, you know, like what use is being a client services director in an agency if you're in the middle of, I don't know, wherever, and you don't have any of those. But all of a sudden I was like, wow. And I felt like right, you know, to be doing that in your mid-30s and, you know, like relearning that lesson felt so powerful. And I was like, wow, this is pretty awesome, you know. And I'm sure if I said that to many people, there could have been a lot of judgment. But actually, I think, you know, again, it was, you know, sharing those kind of experiences and, you know, realizing that those are going to continue to happen all the way through your life. So don't, again, they're natural to you right now. So keep them moving, you know. Cool. Well, listen, I think we are going to have to kind of stop soon, just because, you know, I see that the majority of people are still online, which is great. But I know that we do need to wrap up. So I wanted to just kind of end with a question for each of you, really just something more fun, I guess. So something like nothing work-based, nothing we've talked about today, no, you know, no organizations that have been mentioned so far, but like, what's just something really fun about each of you that we would have no idea that we would have even picked up on? And it can be anything, guys. It could be a funny story. It can be a hobby. It can be something you like to do. It can, whatever, right? Just something really, really fun that's like, none of us could ever guess about you. And I'm not going to pick who's going to go first because I think that's mean. So whoever's got something already in mind, maybe could offer.
I mean, I sort of have the perfect thing. I'm not a
okay,
very, but some people sort of feel like they could have guessed it. But one fun thing about me, I would say, is I'm a really huge Drake fan. So whenever you listen to Drake or see his videos, just think of me, keep me top of mind. And if you ever meet him or have a conversation with him, let him know that you know his.
Say hi from Elijah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Send your love.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great idea, Elijah. Like, just in case you don't get to meet him, you've now just like got a whole task force of people that might be able to get your message to him.
Your network is your net worth.
Absolutely. Okay, right, guys. Who else?
Sophia, you want
I
to
guess
grab this one? I'll grab it. What do you
Nick's
think?
so cute. He's like, ladies first.
Yeah, right? No, I'm happy to take it. One thing that most people, well, interesting. Okay, so if you do know me, you know this because it's the only thing I'm ever talking about and I never shut up about it, is I woke up at 4:30 this morning to go take photos at the ocean. Big surfer, big photographer. The two kind of married each other, you know, towards like the end of high school, really, when I was able to get my own car. I could, you know, get out there early enough and, you know, go shoot, go surf. That's all my mind is ever really thinking about, is tracking swells and, you know, checking the wind direction and, you know, cloud cover and all that good stuff. So yeah, that would be my thing.
That's lovely. Do you live near the ocean?
Yeah, I actually, so my roommate and I, we just moved into a new place 2 weeks after, you know, it was declared a global pandemic, so that was really scary. But yeah, I'm now about like 15 minutes from, you know, the beach. Head down Robert Moses Causeway, and you're right at the South Shore beaches here. So yeah, blessed and thankful.
Very cool. Cool. Sophia.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm a business student and I study project management. So one thing that I have always loved doing, and I haven't really made it into a career because it hasn't, I don't know, it's just a hobby, but painting and doing art is a huge thing that I really like doing. And I also have done a little bit of like video work, and cinematography is something that I've really enjoyed doing. And I've always dreamt of kind of making that into a career, but I think doing project management and studying that is going to be working out fine. But I really love doing video and doing photography and kind of doing digital art and painting as well. So kind of creative, letting that outlet.
I mean, I have to say, I think that like it's interesting, right? Like all of you have business, you know, majors or, you know, whatever, or specialisms or interests, but all of you have got really creative sides as well. And I think that is another one of those, you know, moments, right? To be like, they're not individual, they're not separate, they're together. That is who you are.
Exactly.
And, you know, being able to bring that together and have that conversation in that manner. And actually, I couldn't think of a better industry for you guys to be entering in with those things in mind. You know, if we were here talking about finance or being lawyers or doctors, then maybe the creativity at times has to be achieved in a different manner. But everything you guys are talking about is without a doubt possible, not even unimaginable, not even tricky, you know, like, I feel like, you know, you're in an industry that's about creating content, whether that be the creative side of it or the production side of it. You know, that is what we are here to do, is to, and you guys can manifest whatever that's going to look like for you. And it will change. And sometimes it will be more creative, and sometimes it will be more strategic, and sometimes, you know, you'll get involved in projects that you didn't even realize you could pull something else in. And I think, you know, that's what will put you back here in 5 years' time, having another whole conversation around, well, when I sat here 5 years ago, I thought this, and now this happened. So, but anyway,
and it was all wrong.
Right, it was all worth it. But listen, guys, thank you so much. I really, really, really appreciate your time. I love spending time with all of you individually, and I've really been such a treat to be able to do it together. And, you know, I really appreciate your involvement in the APC. I'd love you guys to, you know, to be more and more involved. And for everybody watching today, like I say, if you are not aware of the APC and you'd like to learn more, please get in contact with us. You can email us at info at apc-nyc.com. You can also get in touch on LinkedIn with any of us guys, including me. by all means. And please, by all means, follow us on social media. Keep an eye out for more webinars. I know all of these guys, like you can see, are all involved in other organizations as well. I'm sure they'd be very happy to talk to you offline around some of those. And if you're interested more in any of those organizations, we'll also put together a little wrap-up email of some of the stuff we've talked about, as well as some links to some of the kind of tools that we've talked about today as well. And like I said at the beginning, this video will be available on the YouTube channel at some point in the next 24 hours. So have a lovely rest of your day, a lovely rest of your week and weekend. Hope everyone's got something fun planned. And I'll talk to you all very soon. So thank you so much, guys. I'll see you again.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care, guys.
Take care,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you.